Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion, and by Lear, a global leader in automotive seating and electrical systems.
This is Autoline After Hours with Gary Vasilash, episode 359 for December 15th, 2016. Pacifica goes electric. Watch Autoline After Hours live at Autoline.tv every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific Time. You can subscribe to this podcast for free by searching for Autoline in iTunes, Stitcher, or on YouTube. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for Autoline After Hours. As those of you who are regular viewers know, this is not the studio we're normally in because we're in the Smashbox studio in Culver City, California. I said it correctly that time. And we're out here because of the Pacifica Hybrid. They've been driving around these parts, and so we're going to get a deep dive on the Hybrid. I'm joined by Gene Jennings, who is the editor-in-chief of Facebook.com/Gene Knows Cars, all one word.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be here. I'm also never here.
And importantly, Kevin Metz, who's the chief engineer for the Pacifica Hybrid.
Yes.
Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
So this is a rather revolutionary car from the standpoint of we've not seen a hybrid minivan.
No, it is the first one, and it's a great program to be on. It starts out with a great base program. The Gas Pacifica has been very successful. The structure is very good for a hybrid, big enough to package a 16 kilowatt hour battery. Plus all of the great features that the Pacifica can bring to the hybrid. Things you don't see really is all the weight reductions that we did on the base program. We've dropped 240 pounds out of that program, basically through extensive use of high-strength hot stamped steels, closures of aluminum, the hood, the sliding doors, the liftgate outer is all made out of aluminum. We redesigned the underbody structure to not only drop weight, but to also provide that torsional stiffness that the vehicle really needs for the great ride and handling. It's like the backbone for the suspension system on the program. So, and also we were able to then incorporate the packaging requirements for the battery, so that we did all of that kind of upfront with the base program. And we have the batteries located in the center of the vehicle. It's down low. It's underneath the center row seating arrangement. It's this stow and go will be on the base program, but this will have two captain's chairs in the back. So we got a quad seating arrangement. So we're able to put that battery where the stow and go seats were, so it's under the floor pan. It's the low center of gravity actually complements the ride of the vehicle. The seats actually fold flat and are removable, so there really no compromise in cargo carrying capability. So all in all, the battery location we got really from the base program and redesigning that structure.
So you guys worked from the get-go knowing full well that you were a hybrid.
Yeah,
it wasn't
definitely.
Like, an additional.
So not only the battery, but also the manufacturing process, right? So the plant, when we set the plant up, we knew the hybrid was coming, so we made sure that we had spots on the line to do all the various unique hybrid operations. And we actually spent a lot of time with the manufacturing team to really optimize the design for manufacturing. The majority of the hybrid system is actually from the center seat where that battery is located, all the way up underbody, all the way up to where the transmission would be, because the transmission is a unique, E-Flight transmission. So really, that's where the bulk of the hybrid content is. So the teams work together well, both manufacturing and engineering. We have a super module, what we call it, where we've located the onboard charger, the 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger, the DC to DC converter. That's the module that we use to convert the high voltage to 12 volt system. We don't have an alternator on the engine. So we have various plumbing and these modules mounted on a super module, right in front of the battery. So they load on our chassis line, and then they're decked into the vehicle. So again, a lot of work with the plan on ergonomics and making sure the vehicle went together well.
So when you say hybrid, I mean, I know a lot of our viewers are familiar with hybrids, but could you tell us a little bit what approach you're taking to a hybrid for people who perhaps are not familiar with that?
Well, we looked at the minivan customer. It's a very hectic life, right? It's a big vehicle, a lot of, big families, a lot of flexibility with the vehicle. And their lives are complicated. They're busy, they're running all the time. So we wanted to make it as seamless to the customer as possible. So what we did is, that's the approach we took. So really what happens with the vehicle is the first 30 miles, it's all electric, right? And as soon as you deplete the battery down, the vehicle will transition to hybrid mode. There's no switching, there's no worries. It'll switch seamlessly, and most of the time you don't even know it did. And then you can travel for another 500 miles on hybrid mode, or, using the gas engine. So there's no range anxiety. So really, from a customer's perspective, it's a win-win.
So what we need to tell people about that hybrid mode is that it's now in hybrid mode, meaning it's using the brakes to generate and replenish the battery. It's using engine braking. It's using what? Well, slowing down?
The Pacifica Hybrid has a fully blended regenerative braking system. So as you press on the brake pedal, the vehicle's kinetic energy, so it's the mass of the vehicle going down the highway at a speed, that's kinetic energy. The braking system actually converts that into electricity and stores it in the battery, uses it, instantaneously. So we extend the range that way.
The question was, the thing I would like to make clear is that when you say the battery is depleted, then it goes into hybrid mode.
Right.
What's that difference? I know what it is, but I'm just thinking some of the viewers might not understand that, because when the battery's depleted, it's not all a gas engine running.
No, you're right. So so when the battery's depleted and you're in hybrid mode, hybrid is still 2 powertrains, right? So it will act like a hybrid. So
it just keeps going.
So so you'll actually operate in electric mode, continue, in that hybrid mode. And then when you need to, or when you deplete down a little bit, then you'll convert back to gas.
So maybe even more simplistically, is that for 30 miles you basically have an electric car.
You have an electric car.
Fully electric car.
Yep.
And then when it's after those 30 miles or thereabouts,
you have a hybrid.
Then you have a
hybrid,
massively economical vehicle with incredible range.
Right. So it goes back and forth.
Right.
And so it's just like any hybrid that people have been familiar with.
So as you gather energy from regen braking, we'll run the vehicle in electric mode. You go down a hill and you gather regen braking that way, we'll bring on the electric motors again.
So from an engineering, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, from an engineering point of view, as you say that the minivan is really a great platform for a hybrid vehicle, and hybrids have been out there now for a long time, and nobody's done one. Was there any particular challenge that you guys had to face?
Well, really, packaging the battery was the first one. We wanted to make sure we didn't compromise the vehicle in any way. We wanted to make sure that all the functional objectives were met. And ultimately, we didn't want to sacrifice the customer experience. So packaging the battery, I think we put it in the right spot for the vehicle. We're able to use the quad seats to replace the stow-and-go seating, and I think it's a good trade-off there. So from a customer perspective, really no compromise at all.
Right. But there was, the minivan just seems to be ideal, the nature of what people do when they're driving minivans and the efficiency they're looking for, as you were saying, that why did it take so long?
Well, that's a good question. We'll see how it goes in the marketplace, right? But when you look at the vehicle, when you look at it, it's complete, and you look at it, it's why not, exactly right. Why a minivan? Well, why not a minivan? When you've spent some time in that one, you'll say, yeah, well, why not?
Look, the minivan was like the #1 selling vehicle at Chrysler for years and years and years. Why bother? Until there was really, break in the action, until you got some money from the Department of Energy to start working on electric vehicles and all that. I'm not surprised that it took that long. And it took that long to have a fairly, it feels like a very advanced flexible system. Or as I heard the words over and over again, it works automatically and seamlessly. And it seems to do that, automatically and seamlessly. You don't flip any switches, you don't do anything, it just rolls. What I also really like about the whole thing is that range, and I think range is probably more important to people than the fuel economy. It's the range. I want to go up to my cabin in northern Michigan and back, and I don't want to stop for gas.
Right. When you look at the 30-mile range, we have some research that tells us that normal driving, normal daily work that you need to do, whether it's moving the kids around or going back and forth to work, 30 miles, most of the people, that's a fine enough range to get what they need to get done, right? And then on the weekend, they want to go to see grandma and she's across town or, cross state. Really, there's no range anxiety. You just jump in. The first 30 miles is electric. After that, it transitions to the hybrid mode, and you're all set.
And if they'd never plugged it in, they'd still be able to get to where they need to be without having to worry about finding a plug.
Right, and finding a plug, we get 2 hours on a charge, a level 2 charger will charge your battery to full completion. 14 hours on a level 1 charger.
So level 1 being in your garage.
Yeah, in your garage.
Just regular
standard wall outlet. The level 1 charger comes with the vehicle. It comes in a nice case, and it's packaged inside the left rear quarter panel. So it's very convenient. We do have some special screens. Our customer research also told us that the hybrid customer wants to be in electric mode as long as possible, and they want a coach, an onboard coach, to kind of help them be the most efficient they can be.
It's like a game.
Yeah.
It's a total game.
So
I never saw mine in electric mode when I was driving it. It was always dark blue gas. I've hammered down.
Yeah. Well,
you're not the ideal.
Cool.
You're not the ideal hybrid driver.
I am. They're super fast and super smooth, and this is a really premium vehicle too. So I'd say that's pretty much a no compromise vehicle.
Yeah.
Can't get much better than that.
Nope.
So, Kevin, with that, I want to thank you for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And so again, Kevin Metz, Chief Engineer of the Pacifica Hybrid. So we're going to take a quick break and hear from our friends at Lear.
Lear Connexus offers a parental controls application with geofencing that sends notifications regarding driving behavior and location, including curfew alerts, acceleration alerts, and speed alerts. All delivered to a smartphone application that includes vehicle location, driver notifications, and a report card of driving history, including notifications when predefined geographic boundaries are crossed. For more information, visit Lear.com.
And we're back. We're now joined by John Gibson, who is the Chief Engineer for Electrified Powertrains. So you had a little something to do with this vehicle, I'm sure?
Yes. It's been really an exciting project to work on. So thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here.
So explain to us, if you will, the powertrain that's in this vehicle.
So the Pacifica Hybrid is what we call a blended plug-in hybrid. And what that means is it's designed to do all your typical city and highway driving all electrically. But if you need some extra passing power or if you've depleted the battery, the engine will seamlessly and automatically come on. We felt when we designed it for our customers, the minivan customer is a very busy and tends to deal with hectic lives, children getting them in and out of the van. And we really wanted to cater that they can just get in the car and drive, and it will always be in its most efficient mode, however the user decides to drive the car.
Kevin mentioned that you don't have an alternator in this vehicle. So in the transmission is different than a normal transmission? Could you explain
That's correct. So there are a few things that we don't do in terms of a typical vehicle. So we don't have an alternator. We also don't have a starter motor. So the electrified transmission, the E-Flight electrically variable transmission that's designed and developed by FCA, actually has a motor in it that will start the engine, so we don't need a starter motor. And we have what's called the DC to DC converter, which converts the high voltage battery down to 12 volts so that it runs all your 12 volt accessories. So those are many of the things you start have to thinking about with a hybrid vehicle. For example, there's also an electric AC compressor that runs the climate control system, as well as an electric coolant heater that can provide heat. So there's many other accessories on the vehicle when you start needing to drive the vehicle electrically that, in comparison to a conventional vehicle, are much different. You have to put different components in that can work off of high voltage. So those are also some of the additional challenges we faced in developing the vehicle.
You know, when you have all those components that you're supplying the electricity to, that changes the range, doesn't it?
It does, but you know, we think we've put in the ideal set of range for how the minivan customers use the vehicle. So we've got 30 miles of all electric range that will cover all the daily tasks of our minivan users, and then when they want to go on weekend trips or visit family, they've got 500 miles of more range. So even while using other accessories, you've always got that 500 miles of hybrid range available to you.
All right, so let me ask you what is possibly a stupid question. So you have a normal gasoline engine in this car.
So we started with the Pentastar engine on the base Pacifica, and we'd made some modifications to make it more efficient and work seamlessly with the hybrid. So we put in new pistons, we put in new camshafts, and we put in new valves. And essentially what we did is we used the Atkinson cycle and increased compression ratio that makes the engine more efficient. Since we have an electric drive system, we can actually make a trade where we trade off a little bit of power for efficiency in terms of the internal combustion engine, and we can then seamlessly use the electric drive system to supplement the power of the engine.
What's the size of the Pentastar engine?
It's a 3.6 liter, and it's a variant of our award-winning Pentastar engine from the base minivan.
So when you're driving this as an electric vehicle, what's making the wheels go around?
So in electric mode, the E-Flight electrically variable transmission that we designed and developed internally has two electric machines in it. It has a planetary gear set as well as a one-way clutch. And the one-way clutch is one of the innovations that we use to increase the efficiency of the transmission. What it allows is that actually both electric motors can be contributing torque to the wheels during electric drive. That helps us be more efficient and achieve our targets of the 30 miles range, as well as the up to 80 mpge in city driving.
Did Fiat engineers have anything to do with, did they contribute anything to this work?
So we at Chrysler ended up being the global center of competence, and we are working with globally to establish electrification expertise across the company.
Super.
So when you're in electric mode, is the internal combustion engine running at all?
During charge depleting or electric mode, if you do not need enough power to the wheels, you will be in electric mode. As I mentioned, it's a blended plug-in hybrid. We've designed it with significant electric drive capability that typical city highway driving maneuvers will be done all electrically, and then only if when you're using the battery you need to make aggressive passing maneuvers or things, then the engine will come on to assist.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been working in electricity at Chrysler?
I joined Chrysler in November of 2005, and I've been working on electrified vehicles since the day I started.
So what kind of a battery is in this vehicle?
So we partnered with LG Chem.
A Korean company? LG Chem?
Yes, I think they are a Korean company, but the engineering, the design and development of the pack was done in Michigan, as well as the battery pack will be manufactured in Michigan as well. So it's a 16 kilowatt hour pack. It has 96 cells in it, and we have two options for charging it. You can charge it with any household cord for in about 14 hours. We provide a cord with the car. And as well as if you want to upgrade to the 240 volt charger, you can charge it in just about 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
How long will that pack last? Is there a warranty on the pack?
The warranty on the pack is 10 years and 150,000 miles in the zero emissions vehicle states, and then in the non-ZEV states it's 10 years, 100,000 mile warranty on the battery.
And you know, those packs, when they're done, when they're done, they're not really done, are they?
No. Essentially, they've, as we say, they've gone through their useful life. They're still functioning.
Car.
Yeah, they're exactly. They're still functioning. But in terms of the energy content and power content in the battery, they're now what we would just say at the end of useful life. It's not like the vehicle won't function even at the end of useful life, but it's time to change the battery after it's aged to a certain point.
Do you guys have any operation to deal with those batteries that are done? Can you send them in to be reused in just like powering an electric grid for a neighborhood or something like that?
For our customers, they can just bring the car in. When the car will actually tell them when their battery needs to be changed. They'll be notified. They just take it into a dealer. The dealer will replace it, and Chrysler manages all of the recycling of the battery for the customer, so they don't even have to think about it.
What was the most challenging part of developing? This is really, really a sophisticated and flexible system, powertrain system. What was your most difficult challenge?
I think our most difficult challenge was to do exactly what we were trying to do for our customers, which was make it seamless, and so that they didn't have to make all those decisions. So there was lots of engineering work that went into what decisions did we want to make, how do we make it operate in the most efficient mode, and how do we make it so that the customer doesn't even feel those transitions when they're driving in a daily basis.
So did you benchmark other systems when you were developing
Of course,
this?
we always look at what the competition is doing out there and as a reference, but really we focused on what our customers needed, and we felt we really have hit an ideal package here with the ability to just get in, drive the car. It's always the most efficient automatically and seamlessly, as well as I think we've hit on a really great combination of the ranges, the 30 miles of all-electric range for the day-to-day tasks and the 530 miles of total range for those long trips that our customers use.
Well, that's a big vehicle for over 500 miles. That, you're pushing a barn through the wind pretty much. A very attractive barn, just kidding.
With good CD.
Very attractive barn.
Okay, so is this system scalable? I mean, is this something that you could conceivably apply to other types of vehicles going forward?
Of course, we always looked at what other types of vehicles and platforms could use this, and these types of systems are scalable. So as the market would need, or we make decisions on other places that electrification may make sense, we can certainly use this technology.
Mm-hmm.
Europe is probably waiting with more bated breath than they are in the United States, too.
Well, as I mentioned, we're a global company, and electrification is not just a North American thing. It's a global phenomenon that I think is going to happen in all regions of the world.
Mm-hmm. So, for the plug-in aspect of this, was that a area that you guys focused on in terms of making that as convenient as possible for people to do?
So for where we package the charge port, we put it right in front of the passenger door. We think that that's a very convenient location. And in terms of the plugging it in, I've been actually driving one of these as my personal vehicle for like this last 6 weeks. And as was mentioned, it gets to be a game. You actually want to plug it in because you want to drive the vehicle in electric mode as much as possible. So the plugging in is very simple. You can just plug it in at any household outlet at home, or if you want to get the quicker charge, you can upgrade to the 240 volt charger.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that it becomes very much a game. What I'm wondering about is that if someone is looking at the hybrid or a non-hybrid vehicle and they go take test drives, are they going to be able to really tell a difference in terms of the performance of the vehicle?
Well, what we've tried to do, we've used the base vehicle as much as we can in terms of the drivability characteristics to try and set it as the benchmark. Because in the marketplace, we did do benchmark competitors, but one of the things that we found out there is there's really nobody in this competitive space with a vehicle of this size and this electric drive capability. So we tried to use the base vehicle as much as we could to set up the performance parameters. So in terms of drivability, I think what the customer will notice is in electric mode, the vehicle will drive quite different with the amount of instantaneous torque available and how quiet it is.
So what you're saying is When you turn this vehicle on, there's no noise. And you turn it off and on and off and on until you remember that it's electric. And when you turn it on, you just put it in gear and away you go. And that torque, what you're talking about, the torque is when you stand on it, it will slam your head into the headrest. It's super fast. It's great. Love that part.
Well, we've installed 260 total system horsepower into the vehicle, and we feel that that's going to meet the need of our minivan
It
customers.
doesn't sound like a lot of horsepower, but it's not bad. Combined with that torque,
with lower,
that thrusting, it's really nice. It is really a nice bit of power.
Yeah,
what about the weight? The weight variance between a basic Pacifica and a gasoline Pacifica and the E.
So as Kevin mentioned, we took out 240 pounds from the previous generation minivan, and that kind of set the stage to add the hybrid components, which of course do add weight. The weight differential between the base minivan and the hybrid is 650 pounds. The majority of that is
current Pacifica.
Right. And the majority of that is in the battery, which we've packaged low and in the center of the car, which really doesn't impact the driving dynamics. In fact, it can help them to some extent.
It doesn't impact the front to rear weight variance at all, because it's right in the middle. It's so far, it's so down low that you don't have slinging around when you're driving the car.
That's right. You know, I think when you get to drive the vehicle, the additional weight really is transparent because of the way we've managed where the battery is packaged.
Mm-hmm. Well, John, with that, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's fascinating engineering, and I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing more hybrid systems coming from FCA in the future. So
thank you. I appreciate you having me on the show.
We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back for more about Pacifica Hybrid.
From Shanghai to the Silicon Valley, the auto industry may make news around the globe, but there's only one spot to get your daily dose. Check out Autoline Daily at autoline.tv, Monday through Friday at noon Eastern.
And we're back. We're joined by Alisa Priddle, who is the Detroit editor for Motor Trend magazine, and our friend Anton Wahlman, who is the auto industry columnist for Seeking Alpha. So, and we still have Gene. All right, so let's start with you, Alisa. So, Pacifica Hybrid, you've driven it. What do you think?
Yes, and it was really interesting to drive the hybrid because we'd already driven the regular one as part of our Car of the Year testing at Motor Trend, and so you know, all of this talk about the improved suspension and changing the rear axle and everything, we could feel that already in the car. We did it on, you know, high-speed ovals and handling courses and road routes, and you know, you could really see that. The difference then when you hop into the hybrid is you've got all that lovely weight distribution and that center of gravity, and so the car feels even more planted. We're testing it out here, we didn't get as many twisties as we would have liked, and we did have some weird pavement in Beverly Hills where, you know, the vehicle was do they have no money in Beverly Hills? It wallowed like a little in that sort of uneven stuff, but then as soon as everything else in front of us was doing the same thing, and then the rest of the ride, like, you could just really feel that this is a fun vehicle to drive. I mean, it's kind of defies the whole minivan stereotype. It doesn't drive big. It doesn't drive like a big family kid hauler.
So is it the Pacifica-ness or is it the hybridness that?
Well, it's both. I mean, obviously you had to work with the Pacifica in the first place, and so I think they did a nice job of that. And then the hybrid, as Gene was saying earlier, I mean, you do have that torque. You know, you do have that, you know, weird sensation of turning it on and having no sound. You do get to play with that screen. Gene and I drove together, and like she said, we didn't see a lot of teal. It turns teal when it's electric.
Okay, so basically you guys were stomping on it, right?
Well, except for they said that our results were actually not that bad. We thought that we were doing a poor job, and it turns out that we had done the majority of our trip in electric. So I guess that speaks to that you can have fun and drive it however you want, and it will still perform for you. And maybe someone who drove it a little more miserly would have really seen some big returns.
Anton, how did you? Were you like these two, wildly driving this vehicle?
Yeah. That said, the electric-only portion of the drive was, of course, the vast majority. I got on the general order of 94% of my driving in electric-only mode. So that is how it worked out.
So this is not in the first 30 miles. This
First wasn't bad.
This is
overall.
No. For the first, until the battery had reached its minimal sustainable charge, during that period, approximately 94% of my driving was in all-electric mode. In other words, 6% of the mileage up to that point, the gas engine did cut in during heavy use of acceleration.
I don't think we were in that. We didn't use that much electric as Anton did. We didn't see it that high in our one.
No, we didn't do
And
as well as
Alisa
he did.
talks about teal, just so we clear this, there's an interesting light, a light that they use to show you when you're in electric mode or when you're using more gas. So when you're in electric, you'll see numbers in a teal color. You'll see information in teal. There's also an app that's in the center stack that can give you really deeply detailed information about how you're doing, including driver history. And I was a little worried about the driver history because I didn't want it. You know, my husband is always tracking my lead foot and telling me I'm wrecking his fuel economy. So I checked that driver history, and it's like the total of the driving going on there. But anyway,
and so you
the
came to the
gas
conclusion
mode
you're wrecking
is dark blue. I'm always wrecking his average
Let's just get this
fuel
clear.
economy.
We want to make sure.
So when Alisa says we did not see teal very often, it means we were very rarely just in electric mode.
Yep.
The dark blue is gas, and then behind the actual readout of your how fast you're going, the speedometer, there's a faint teal glow if you're driving an electric, or a faint navy blue glow.
The one nice thing, too, though, is that if you do want the power, if you want to pass or you're going up a ramp or anything, I do like the idea that
everything's working.
Everything. So even if you have a fully charged battery, the gas engine will still kick in to give you the power that you need. And I think that that's reassuring for people who want to know that they have that full power if they need it.
And that's
All right,
the
so basically you guys
engineering that John was talking about when he says we made it automatic and seamless. And I think that was one of the really cool things about it. If you're indicating through the accelerator pedal that you need power, it will just pull.
There.
It'll just be there.
So I get the sense that you two used the hybrid system as an electric supercharger, rather than something that will allow
It's simply a function of how big of a lead foot you have, right? So I mean, you're going to
size 11.
The more you accelerate, the more often the gasoline portion of the engine is going to kick in. It's as simple as that. But I mean, the big picture in this car is very simply this: if you want anything with a plug that's going to get you into carpool lane in California, and that has 3 rows of seating for adults, there are only 3 vehicles available in the market: Tesla Model X, Volvo XC90 T8, and the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid. Those are the only 3 that accomplish this task. And of course, of those 3, the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid is by far the least expensive.
It's really a great price.
That's right.
Super price point.
That's right. So, and also it is by far and away the one with the largest amount of interior space and most flexibility. So those are the 2 things that you get here. You get into a 3-row at a far lower price than anything else, as well as you get simply more interior space.
A lot of space. In addition to that, you have range in this vehicle too. That to me is really important for a minivan driver. A vehicle of this capacity, its size, that's good range.
Yeah, but also the electric-only range. Keep in mind that the Volvo has a 9.2 kilowatt-hour battery.
And this has 16.
This is 16.0, and the Volvo is rated at 13 or 14 miles of all-electric range. Chrysler said this is going to be 30 miles or conceivably slightly better than that.
Yeah, I think we're going to see it higher. Whenever we ask them, they say they're very excited to see the EPA numbers, which suggests it's going to be greater than 30.
Right? 16.0 is not twice 9.2, but 30 plus is easily twice or more than 13 or 14. So in terms of miles per kilowatt hour yielded from the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid, it is a far better result than Volvo gets on the XC90 T8.
So
more
Anton,
bang for the buck there.
And you track the hybrids and electric vehicles, unlike most human beings on Earth. So
he is unlike most human beings.
How is this vehicle now slotted in to this range of vehicles that are out there?
So here's what's going to happen. Going into 2011, there were a lot of people in California and Silicon Valley.
We should point out that you're in California. You live in
Silicon
Valley.
Down in Southern California as well. So that had 2 vehicles. They had a Toyota Prius and they had a minivan, typically a Toyota Sienna or a Honda Odyssey. In 2011, they traded in that Prius for either a Nissan Leaf or a Chevy Volt. They've kept the minivan. And now what they want is to replace the minivan with, practically speaking, a plug-in hybrid. This is the first one that's coming into the market. All of these people are now going to run out and get rid of that now much overdue Honda Odyssey or Toyota Sienna that they owned and plug in this one instead. These are not consumers that need to be educated about any plug-in or any, they don't need education from the dealer. They don't need to be sold on the concept. For the last 5 years, they've already been plugging in at home and or at the office. Everything is ready to go for these people, and this is a very simple purchase decision from them. And I think the first few thousand units will be sold primarily to this type of customer.
In Silicon Valley?
In Silicon Valley and down here in the Southern California area, correct.
And I just think this is going to be the first plug-in for so many consumers, just because the vehicle makes so much sense. First off, it looks, I mean, it's the nicest looking minivan that we have seen in a long time.
Also,
and it's got this nice, and the price. I mean, with destination starting at $43,000 is
and that doesn't
incredibly
include the credit,
low
the
price for
$7,500 credit from the government. And
Plus $1,500 in California.
I was going to say it doesn't take into account your state credit, whatever that is. So here it's
so I mean, it's an incredibly affordable vehicle. So I think there's going to be people going out there who might not even know that there is a hybrid minivan, but they just needed to look. They've just heard the buzz that there's a new good-looking minivan out there, and the segment as a whole is getting a boost because of the Pacifica again. You know, minivans had definitely they had fallen off, then they leveled off, and the Pacifica just because it's new and it's catching people's eye, so it's selling well. And I think there are people who are going to go in and go, oh, you know, here's a new minivan, and they're going to come in and find out, oh, I have an option of getting the hybrid as well, and they're going to see the price and they're going to go, wow, like I can conceivably go.
But why would they do that? Why would they do that? Just because of the all week long not going to the gas station?
Yeah, they're going to come in and go, wait a minute, that's an option?
I think range is everything. I think range is way more important than fuel economy.
Yeah, and there's no range anxiety with it.
They're not thinking, I'm getting 30. Most people don't even know what their cars get. They know that they can go this far. How far you can go, you know, a one-tank trip. How far will you get? I think that's really important.
So that's the rest of the world. Anton's world is all about the sticker, right?
Yeah, well, you know.
Well, it's a combination of things. Obviously, people want to buy a new car, it needs to have the carpool lane sticker. And secondly, some people simply need, there's a reason why these people had a minivan in the first place. Yeah. They had a minivan in the first place because they needed to fit minimum 6 or 7 large people plus a lot of luggage. And a minivan does that and an SUV does not. So if you are a person with those needs, then a large SUV like a Volvo XC90 may not be ideal for you. Now, of course, this thing doesn't have all-wheel drive. It doesn't have a high ground clearance, but that is probably an okay compromise for a lot in this
well, it has been engineered to add all-wheel drive if they want to in the future.
Right. But you're missing a little trick here. One of the things it does has a very low load floor, so it's really easy for people to push things in and out. And I don't think it's all just about large people, a lot of luggage, and so on. I think there's
it's both, right? It's the versatility.
Yeah. My husband, he had a dog. He didn't have a bunch of people. He had a minivan. He loved it for his business because he could move a lot of stuff in and out of that cargo area. And I think the utility of that vehicle and the ease of driving, because you know you're at the same. All minivans, hip-high seating, very comfortable. You know, you're in a chair-high position. You can step out. You don't have to, you know.
But those are the exact same arguments that have spoken in favor of minivan for the last 32 years.
So it's still that. It's not just giant people and all their luggage.
And for people in Detroit where it gets cold, I mean, it's cold there now, unlike California. I thought it was interesting that all of the temperature controls that's also electric, and so you can, if you're have your car is plugged in your garage, and you can from your phone app turn it on so that the cabin is already heated up for you
They call
in
it
the garage.
Condition. You can
cabin conditioning you can
because
do.
it doesn't necessarily
Right, and so you hop into it, and
so
you're not. I mean, obviously, there's no gas filling your garage or anything. Your car is all heated up for you, and you hop in, and out you go. So I think that will be kind of one of those nice little sort of Easter eggs that you find when you buy a vehicle.
So
It
rather
works
than
the exact same way that a Chevy Volt has worked for the last 5 years.
Yes, but there are a lot of people who are going to get this have never been in a Volt. I think there's a lot of customers who would have never considered that if they have big family needs.
It's going to be easy to buy it too because there's one option for each of the two vehicles, correct?
each of what two?
Or
There's two trim levels.
Two trims
That's what
on
I'm
the
talking
Pacifica
about. Each
Hybrid.
of the two.
It comes
There's
two
one
ways. It's a simplified
option-
offer.
Sorry, one option for each of the trim levels.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of
Nothing.
decision
So
making.
you don't
pick
have
a trim
to, you just
level and
go
pick
in,
whether or
pick
not
it and
you want
go.
one option.
Yeah.
So Anton, you mentioned the Volt. So architecturally, in terms of the system, is this Volt-like?
It is, but it isn't. There are some similarities. So 16 kilowatt hours was exactly the size of the battery capacity of the original Volt 1.0 as it entered production this month 6 years ago. And that has been developed, expanded since then. It went from 16 to 16.5 to 17.1 to now 18.4 and a higher utilization rate as a percentage of that. But the Volt is what we call a pure e-rev, a pure electrically extended electric vehicle. And that means that if you floor the Volt 100%, if you utilize the entire power band, as long as there is enough battery capacity left, it will never turn on the gasoline engine. This one does not do that. So they are not identical. They work a little bit differently. So if you're going uphill and you just floor it in a Volt here and you have enough battery power, it will not turn on the gasoline engine. This one will, and that is a function of at least two things: the power of the electric machine and the weight of the vehicle. This vehicle obviously weighs a lot more than the Volt, and Chrysler has not yet stated what the power of the electrical machine only is. All they've said is that total system power is 260 horsepower, but of course, to know whether it can handle a certain degree of acceleration, you would need to know what the power is strictly from the electrical machine.
Okay, so with that, we're going to take another quick break here. We're going to hear from our friends at Bridgestone, and we'll be back with more about the Pacifica Hybrid and other hybrid vehicles. And we're back. So we're talking all about Pacifica Hybrid minivan, and we alluded to this a little bit. I mean, okay, so here's Motor Trend driving minivans. Now isn't that sort of contraindicated that you guys would drive vehicles like that?
Well, no, because we want to tell everyone about every kind of vehicle, and this is important for the industry in general. I mean, we talked earlier about how minivans, they're not at the peak that they once were, but it's a really solid segment, and it is one that's I think starting to inch up again. People want advice on if a vehicle is good or not, and so when something new comes out, I mean, we want to be the first to be driving it. It was even a finalist for Car of the Year. So that people were incredibly impressed with how this thing drove, and let's face it, not many people are running out and buying a Ferrari every day, but there's a heck of a lot of people who are looking for a minivan, and they want to know.
What about the stigma?
They're not just
What about
buying
the stigma of a minivan versus an SUV?
That's gone. That's really gone.
People are getting tired, I think, of SUVs. Everything goes, how we went through wagons and then we got past it, and I think people are actually starting to get a little bit of crossover fatigue a little bit, and are looking. I mean, that's why you're.
But the highest.
It's
still the highest, but I'm saying there are some people.
Number one category.
I know it is. I said they're starting to get some fatigue. For example, I mean, why Chevy now has a cruise hatchback, because they're starting to recognize that there are some people out there who actually maybe just don't want a regular crossover anymore. They want to stand out just a little bit. I'm not saying crossovers are going to go away anytime soon.
But the cruise is a sedan, not a.
Right, but I'm just saying things like minivans are going to come back. Things like I think that people are always, as soon as they see that there's a ton of something, there's always a portion of them looking for something different. And I think that the minivan, and all the kids who grew up in a minivan, actually have good memories of family trips in a minivan.
And part of it, I think, is also have to do with how much effort automakers put into it and what comes out of it, because minivans, let's face it, were pretty poorly executed for a while
they're not
in the
boxes
excitement
anymore.
department.
No.
They're just not boxes
Look at the
anymore. They're
interiors.
beautifully
Look at
designed.
the new Kia Sedona came out
Right.
just about 2 years ago. It's beautiful inside
Oh,
and out.
it's incredible.
And this one is obviously inside and out. Looks
Look at
extremely
the
good.
new CX-9, the Mazda CX-9. You know, there are plenty of minivans out there that aren't called minivans.
So
That's all.
you think the CX-9, which they would say is an SUV,
There are plenty of minivans out there that they don't call minivans, and they're large SUVs. They're SUVs that are beautifully trimmed, that are premium vehicles, and these vehicles, these new minivans that never lost that moniker, are also now beautifully designed. They have a lot of surface detail. You walk around and they're gorgeous. The light signatures are beautiful, and this hybrid Pacifica inside, the head of design did a spectacular job creating leathers and materials and colors that you'll love. You'll get in there and think, I'm in a premium vehicle. A lot of different surfaces, a lot of different colors, and just beautifully done. Those seats
and a consistency in interior. Because some vehicles you get inside and it's such a mishmash of.
Well, they kept everything down, the colors and choices.
And it's a very, all of the shiny bits and everything. Everything has a really nice continuity. You don't have 12 different materials all fighting for your eye.
It's
You know,
a premium
the steering
vehicle
wheel.
inside.
It's one of the prettier steering wheels that I've seen, and all of those materials in the wheel are continued along the dash.
but
So
isn't
not a penalty box. These are not penalty boxes.
but a $42,000 vehicle is, in my estimation, a premium vehicle in many ways.
Minus $7,500, U.S. credit, minus your state credit, and you're not talking about a $40,000 vehicle anymore. It's a really good buy.
So, Anton, what do you think about the minivan segment overall versus SUVs and other types?
Well, it's coming back for a reason. If you look at the stats so far this year in 2016, we have the combined effects of Toyota, Honda, they're essentially plus minus zero. Essentially, the entire increase in the segment has come from FCA, selling out the old Dodge Caravans as well as the new Pacifica. They're up, I forget the exact number, I did a story on this in the last month or two, 48 or so % year over year. These are pretty big increases for a segment that was called out for dead. And I can only conclude that the combined effects of a really low pricing on the outgoing Dodge Caravan in combination with the very fresh design of the Pacifica really has found a response in the market.
So do
you
think
might
others,
say desirable.
will others follow? I mean, okay, you were mentioning the Sedona earlier, the
right.
Kia minivan that came out a couple of years ago, which
That's right.
very stylishly designed, another Peter Schreier success, right?
That's right.
Now, these guys come out with this. We're going to see a new Odyssey soon.
Correct.
We're going to see a new Sienna, presumably sometime after that.
Mm-hmm.
So, is this a revitalized segment?
I think so. I think it's clear. I mean, the automakers are simply putting in the effort to styling them better. So I think that will yield fruit. I mean, for a long period of time, they were viewed as purely utilitarian. They're going to handle the kids puking in the back seat and just fitting a bunch of big boxes at Costco and IKEA. And I think they've just lifted themselves up and done more. And as a result, the market share will gain from the segment.
If I had one of those vehicles, I'd make the kids ride in the front and I'd ride in the back. The beautiful screens, the apps, the comfort of those seats. They're living room. It's living room quality. A real nice living room.
And
one thing we didn't
there's
mention
room for adults in the third row. I mean, so we've all spent a lot of time in the third row this week, and it's a lot of space. And because it's got the sunroof, the pane.
Oh, it's a panorama
so
sunroof that
every
between
row
the
can look
glass
up
on
and-
the sides and the glass on the top, it's wild.
Yeah, so you don't get claustrophobic back there.
So one thing we didn't mention so far is that, of course, in the hybrid, we lose the second row stow and go seats that has been FCA's signature feature in the segment. But we gain one thing that nobody's mentioned yet, and that is that the second row seats are actually better in the hybrid.
They're super. They're much better.
They are better because they don't have to fit into this cavity in the floor.
They're more bolstered.
They're far more bolstered. It's a far more comfortable seat. So now, if you're going to use this vehicle as some species of limo and cart people around, whether you're a so-and-so driver or whatever, the person sitting in the second row is definitely going to be a lot more comfortable than in the non-hybrid version.
Would this
And that
so-and-so
was a
be Uber
criticism.
or Lyft, or is so-and-so like some real SOB?
It could be the C-level boss,
He
or
was
it could be
pointing at me
somebody.
when he said some so-and-so driver.
That's right.
You're pointing at me.
But that does address one of the criticisms before, that they thought that some people thought the minivan seats were not comfortable, and so the second row does have much more padding and foam and everything
in the
it.
hybrid.
In the hybrid, yeah. The other thing you lose in the hybrid is the vacuum. That's
right.
They talk
they
about
have that,
no compromise. Well, okay, you lose the vacuum.
There's only so much electricity to go around.
Yeah. I have a feeling that there was a lot of plumbing that they had to do dealing with those batteries to do that. But Anton, okay, so you're tracking sales of things that are electrified. What is the impact going to be for FCA in terms of the hybrid when we come to sales numbers?
I don't have a specific quantitative estimate for it, but I will say that because it is the first of its kind by a wide margin, combining the utility and the price point, I think that on the one hand we have the California market, which is distinct, where we have a lot of two-car or more than two-car households that already have a Leaf and a Volt or a BMW i3 or an e-Golf or equivalent, and now we'll use this to swap out the second vehicle, their now aging minivan. That is an absolute home run, and there's no competition has existed to this date. The Volvo was either too expensive or just too small on the inside. The Tesla Model X was either too expensive, too exotic, they didn't like the doors or whatever. This thing hits it perfectly on the head. So this is an absolute, they will just stand there with a bucket and see the apples falling down. They will be collecting a lot of sales from this.
That's like an old country kind
That's
of
right.
image.
But in the rest of the country, as you said earlier, Alisa, I think it could be very much the first plug-in for a lot of people because it combines a lot of very attractive traits. It has the utility in combination with the price and all the other good stuff.
But what about it as being an electrified vehicle? I mean, outside the state of California, so let's look at the other 49 states. When we're seeing such cheap gas, why are people going to buy the hybrid vehicle?
Range, one.
Well, I mean, the range isn't better than in the gasoline-only one here, right? Because it gets a smaller gasoline tank. The regular one has a gasoline tank of about 19 gallon. The hybrid one has a 16 and a half.
It's right in there.
Yeah, it's similar.
Same as.
But no, I mean, it made the old dilemma of the cost of electricity versus the cost of gasoline on a per mile basis still stands. It doesn't change that equation, but in some parts of the country where you need it for the carpool lane sticker, it is absolutely essential. So I think that is the lowest of the low-hanging fruit here, and the question is just how large really is that market. But if you consider the number of multi-car households that are already driving an e-Golf, a Leaf, a Volt, or a Kia Soul EV or equivalent, there's a lot of market to take from there.
And it's also a psychological thing. I mean, people love to. It does, even if gas is not as expensive as it used to be. Nobody likes spending money, and no one likes physically going into the gas station. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm always thinking, oh, I'm getting low on gas. Do I do it on the way to work? Do I do it on the way home? I mean, it's not something anybody enjoys doing.
So somebody goes.
Gary, you're right. I mean,
if you could go weeks
right.
and never go to a gas station.
You're right, though, because the low price of gas has seriously affected sales of electric vehicles. That's absolutely true. But there is no electric minivan, and now there is one. So that, I think there's something.
And also keep in mind the low price of gas has not driven the demand for plug-in vehicles to zero. And there's another reason for that, and that is that a lot of people actually are getting their electricity completely for free.
Yes.
I mean, in California, so many employers now offer plug-in, and it's not a taxable benefit. So you plug in there, and you don't care what the employer pays for this thing. I mean, you either take advantage of the free electricity or you do not. Now, you might save less than you would than if gasoline were $4 or $5 or $6 per gallon, but it still feels pretty good to get something for free that if you don't take it for free, the guy sitting next to you, he is going to be taking advantage of it. So there's still, I think, a meaningful incentive there.
Okay, but somebody goes into their local Chrysler dealership and they're going to be looking at minivans, okay? And so you've all argued that this has a very good price point in terms of once you get the incentives back to you. But the guy says to you, you know what? I can get you into this minivan, get you a sweet, sweet audio system that'll just blow the doors off, and it'll only cost you X. And you buy that hybrid, it's not such a good deal.
What are you talking about?
Oh, what I'm saying is that people will make choices predicated on things other than fuel efficiency,
well,
right?
that just will happen anytime you know.
Right.
That's
They
what
will,
happens
but
in
I
car
mean-
dealerships.
So I mean, you get the fine Cordoba leather, or you get.
I'm
But I
not
think
even
that there's
sure
in
what
part.
you're saying. I really don't know what you're saying.
So
What are you saying?
So you're saying instead of paying a premium for a hybrid, they're going to pay a premium for
And
a
then
different kind of
Cordoba leather?
upgrade?
I can't see that happening, but you know, what I do see happening is this, as you say, and rightfully, this is the first of its kind too. There is some really cool factor about that.
I mean, some people get a plug-in of any kind because of some species of religious dogma, right? That's just the fact of it, especially here in
That's
California.
through the Tesla-ism.
That's in part. But there is also a part of it that is optionality. Like we know that gasoline prices today here in California, you walk outside, it's $2.73 a gallon.
Worse than
But
Detroit.
we know that God knows what happens and it's $4.73 in a nanosecond, right? So
Yeah.
now they will have the option of saying, well, I can get electricity for free at my employer, or I can maybe I'll pay $2.73 today, maybe a few months from now it'll be $4.73. And that optionality is worth something. It's not worth zero. So I think this will be pretty attractive to those people. And I think the people who will be buying this Pacifica Hybrid, I think that they'll find that its conquest sales will be easily 80 to 90%. In other words, these are people who do not and have not recently owned any other FCA vehicle of any kind. When we write the story on this 1 year from now, exiting 2017, I think we'll find that the biggest conquest vehicles were existing minivans, and the owners were people that in their household had a Leaf, had a Volt, had a BMW i3, had an e-Golf or equivalent.
That will
Or a Tesla Model
That will
S.
be the
Or a
interesting
Tesla Model
thing to
S.
see is the conquest, the other conquest vehicles. the
That's right.
premium
You have to look at
sales.
not just the car that they traded in, but what was their other car, because that will tell you a lot the rationale for the reason. They may have had a Leaf or a Tesla or a Volt or whatever as their other sedan, but they needed a replacement for the good old trusty minivan.
I would like to make one more point in that regard. When people who haven't had a new car in a while, or people who are coming in to trade in their minivan, what they will find in the driving experience will blow them away. Because as it has blown, when I was at Automobile Magazine, Motor Trend, that same year we made Tesla Automobile of the Year. Motor Trend made it Car of the Year for a reason, and that kind of blew that stigma of an electric vehicle away from all of the enthusiasts.
Yeah, it
Because
wasn't a
what
boring
you'll
vehicle
find
anymore.
is it is not a penalty box. It's not only gorgeous inside, when you drive it, it's exciting. It's actually exciting to drive.
So Gene, what took the auto industry so long?
They didn't have to do
make,
it.
No, to make this car. They didn't have
They
to.
didn't have
FCA
to.
didn't
They
have
were
to make
selling
this car,
every
did
one they
they?
could make.
Did they have to do it?
Well, there's a point when they have to replace a vehicle, and they've been working with, they've been working on electrification for a long time, and it came to this. You heard the chief engineer. He's been there since 2008. He came to do electrification, and this is his ultimate achievement.
Right, and everyone has to do it because of CAFE. I mean, the industry is heading towards electric vehicles, and so Chrysler looks at their lineup and says, what is the jewel of our lineup historically? The minivan. I mean,
What will
they
benefit
used
from
to
it?
have an
What will
all-electric
benefit from that,
minivan.
too?
Right.
Chrysler has in the past, but the timing was not right. It didn't sell well.
They had the Aspen, they had the Durango, but
But those weren't pure electric. But there was an actual pure electric Chrysler
Right.
minivan.
so
again,
this is the right vehicle. That's the right package to put those batteries in.
Yeah, so there
Really-
will be
really
other
does help it a little.
SUVs that will be plug-in hybrids. I mean, Volkswagen has shown any number of them. There's going to be a future Tiguan that'll be along these lines. There'll be the Atlas will eventually be a plug-in hybrid. But the plug-in hybrids that are available today, with the exception of Volvo, you lose the third row. I mean, in Europe, for example, the Audi Q7 e-tron is available, but unlike the regular Q7, you lose the third row. Same thing with the BMW X5, which has a tiny, teeny, weeny little third row as an option. Forget about that in the plug-in hybrid.
So, Anton, what is the fundamental difference between a plug-in hybrid and a normal hybrid? And I understand the punchline would be the plug, but I mean, so
I wasn't going to say that.
Well, it's for people who have. I mean, you're simply going to be able to drive in essentially strictly in electric mode and reduce your gasoline consumption for potentially long stretches of time to something very close to zero.
So that's the gain for that. For somebody's going into a dealership and saying, I can buy the plug-in hybrid or I can buy the hybrid, you're getting a certain amount of free range.
Yeah, for the person who has the ability to plug in reasonably often. Typically, the person who buys a plug-in hybrid is a person who either has the ability to plug in at home and or at the office. And if you do that, you can probably achieve a very high percentage of your driving in all electric mode. Now, it won't be 100% even for the first 30 or so miles, even with this vehicle. As I said, I achieved about 94%. And that is because unlike a Chevy Volt, which has 100% of its power envelope available in all electric mode, the Pacifica Hybrid does not. But it's also a fairly significant number that is. In my case, it was 94%. Time will tell what it is for different people.
So what about an all-electric? I mean, you mentioned that Chrysler once had a all-electric minivan. You know, Chevy's coming out with the all-electric Bolt, which seems to have functionality, which goes back to your point about a hatch rather than a sedan-style vehicle. Where do you see that coming?
Well, we have one in the market today, Tesla Model X, and there will be others. There's in Europe, they sell the Nissan NV200 as a pure electric. It's basically a minivan built on a Nissan Leaf. It's not sold in the US yet. Maybe in the future variant it might be. So I think it's definitely going to happen. We saw in January of 2016, we had Volkswagen unveil the, what's the name of it again? The Buddy concept car at CES. Bud-E.
Bud-E.
So that's right. So that one will be made eventually, circa year 2020, 2021. We will see that in showrooms. It is definitely coming. There's no question about it. I think these things are complementary. Some people have lives and have a willingness and a tolerance to have one particular type of fueling scenario, and others do not. And I think plug-in hybrids and pure electric vehicles will reside side by side for a fairly long period of time.
I mean, look at Mercedes. They've created a whole new sub-brand just for electric vehicles, their EQ brand. So, I mean, you know, again, everyone is putting all of their eggs into those baskets. There's a lot of automakers that are talking about, you know, everyone has a different year, but by a certain year, everyone's going to have some degree of electrification in everything across their lineup, including Chrysler. This is the start of this is a scalable system that will be rolled out through the other vehicles.
So what do you think we'd see next from them?
I don't know. I mean,
a Durango or a Grand Cherokee?
It makes more sense to me to
I
see
wonder
that
about a
in
Jeep.
large vehicle. Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes more sense to me to see it in a large vehicle because of the usefulness of that weight in terms of center of gravity, low center of gravity, and there's more room. There's more
and how
room.
about your Wagoneer? Like if you want to keep the premium.
We already know what vehicle they cancel, at least temporarily, because if you look back at the 5-year plan that was introduced at their financial analyst meeting in May of 2014, it had a variant of this powertrain in another Chrysler vehicle yet to be named, essentially more of a crossover. They did not have sliding doors, and they added a through-the-road electric motor for the rear axle. And this one was going to come out within about 6 months after this one, so that would have meant, say, middle of 2017. At some point along the way, that thing was either canceled or postponed. So,
and it was supposed to be made in the same Windsor plant as
probably.
this. And,
I don't know.
Part of the reason
But what
it's
is
been
this
postponed.
thing? What is this thing? I mean, what is?
Oh no, it's just a crossover based on this same platform.
Crossover.
Yeah, so let's say that they
So
increase
just a
the
Chrysler
ground
crossover.
clearance by an inch or so and get rid of the sliding doors instead of regular doors and added an electric motor for the rear axle. That's basically the concept.
And part of the reason I think that it's been delayed is that when they were trying to figure out whether the Pacifica was going to be a Chrysler or a Dodge, and they had a real issue because in Canada, the Dodge minivans are super popular. Canadians love minivans because it's a value proposition for them. And they couldn't figure out what to do if they lost all of that. And so as a result, they're continuing to make the Dodge at the Windsor plant, and they're going to make that indefinitely as a a value minivan.
So the previous generation.
Yeah, like the it's a legacy. It's the previous Dodge is still built, and it's going to be built indefinitely. So really, until they need to either add that crossover or do more of these, they're going to continue to use the capacity for the old one.
Because they didn't have to. That's why it took so long to have that, because they didn't have to. And in Canada, they don't have to, so.
Yeah, but I just think about the Wagoneer that's going to come out, a Jeep Wagoneer, premium vehicle. That would be a good candidate to introduce it.
And eventually the Fiat 500e needs to be replaced as well with something. I mean, you can say, well, why don't they just put a new battery generation in an upcoming Fiat 500? Well, can't they come up with something more exciting than that? I mean, don't you put something like that in a 500X, for example? So there's sure to be something coming in a couple of years from now, and also on the lower front.
But you say that would be a full EV or a variant of this plug-in hybrid?
Well, I mean, you could go both ways. I mean, you have the option of going both ways. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it needs to be. I mean, you can make it into either way. I mean, the problem is if for a pure EV, unless you're working from the ground up, it's very hard to pack the right size capacity battery in there and still make it happen in a competitive way. Because keep in mind that the Chevy Bolt is today delivering a 60 kilowatt hour battery with 238 miles of EPA certified range. That's a very hard bar very high bar to meet.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. I want to get a final word from each of you. So what do you think, now that you have driven this vehicle, in terms of the future of hybrids and electric vehicles?
I think it just further raises awareness that there isn't a compromise by getting an electrified vehicle, and that this is kind of the new norm, and this is now a mainstream family vehicle that offers this, and that you don't have to think that somehow the electric vehicle is only for people in California, or only certain price points, or only certain small vehicles. I think it opens up the horizon to say, this is the future, and any kind of vehicle you want, you can get it to run on electricity only, and affordably. I think both the Bolt has done that for electric vehicles, and I think this does it for plug-ins.
Okay, Jean, what surprised you?
It surprised me. What surprised me was the driving dynamics, to tell you the truth. Other than what Alisa talked about earlier, there was a sort of cement trough down the side of Mulholland Drive where the runoff of water runs down, and it's not real big. It's just a little bit small, and if you're a little bit off, it's a little off camera, if you're off the edge a little, there was some little bit of
wallow.
Or inertial
nervous
forces.
stomach-making feeling that was going on there that wasn't anywhere else. So other than that, driving on the canyon roads was as interesting. I mean, it was really buttoned down, and for me, that was probably that low center of gravity. Also, that vehicle is a lot more rigid than it ever was to start with. I mean, the new Pacifica gained a lot in rigidity, which gives you a better car to drive. The driving dynamics were very nice, very nice.
So you were surprised when people told you there was that teal color that you never saw?
I was like, what is this teal color of which you speak? I missed that. But I will tell you, if you want to play the game, you got to open up that app, because that is actively telling you what an idiot driver you are, or how brilliant, what a green person you are. The other thing that I think is important is that this you do not, it's not like you're wearing your environmentalism as a sword and shield by driving some vehicle that's inferior or a penalty box. Not that at all. Jump right in, test it. It's really, really super nice.
Anton, so is Elon Musk saying to himself right now,
Damn it.
Gee whiz, these guys just came out with a plug-in minivan. Chevy's got the Bolt. Am I going to be doomed by these large auto companies now getting into my turf in a meaningful way?
Yeah, I don't think I can read his mind, but I think that he's probably not thinking. I think he's more thinking about the Bolt, because the Bolt, strictly from an engineering standpoint, is a more head-to-head with what he's got today. I mean, it's basically saying it's a Tesla minus 30 grand. So I think that is far more of a concern in that regard. This thing, however, I think honestly, in reality, there's just nothing that is nearly as practical as this. I mean, there's just nothing on the market. This vehicle is just so dramatically unique in what it offers. I think in many ways it is just as important. And I think that you'll find that all of these 2 or more car households that already have a Leaf, already have a Model S or a Volt or whatever that they've owned for a few years, this will be an absolute shoe-in to trade in their now aging Honda Odyssey or Toyota Sienna. I think you'll see tons of that happening. Okay. And that'll eat into his potential opportunity. It will be hard to track because we don't know what they would have done otherwise, but it will definitely happen behind the scenes.
Okay. So, Alisa Priddle, Motor Trend, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Anton Wahlman, Seeking Alpha, and Gene Jennings of Facebook.com/Gene Knows Cars.
Thank you.
Thank you for enduring this entire sequence with me. So,
what about Alisa? She had to endure that.
but you had the whole.
Oh my
endurance.
God,
That's
I'm
right.
so sorry.
Yes. So we want to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion, and by Lear, a global leader in automotive seating and electrical systems.
Visit our website, Autoline.tv, where you can watch us live Thursday afternoons, get your daily news fix with Autoline Daily, and in-depth analysis and interviews with Autoline This Week. There's all that and much more at Autoline.tv.